Labrador Legacy. I'm Brogan. Hi. You're gonna hear from Morgan Michelin from Northwest River about he fell through the ice in Grand Lake, remembers the airstrip being four planes, loves to go hunting and fishing.
Where were you born?
Well, I was born here in Northwest River.
When were you born?
When was I born? I was born in 1965. I think the Vietnam War was on the go then.
How were you raised?
Oh yeah, no, I was raised by my parents and 3 brothers and no sisters. And we grew up here in Northwest. Traditional kind of life, hunting and fishing and doing a lot of trapping and outdoors.
What did you learn as a child?
Oh, we had a pretty rough childhood, I would say, compared to today's childhoods. We were, we burned a lot of firewood and we were out on the land a lot and we were cutting wood and we were in the country a lot. I mean, as 9 or 10-year-old children, we were in tent and at the cabin a lot and hunting, fishing, and trapping, that type of thing from a young age, out in boat, setting nets, catching fish and stuff. We still do it today.
Did you help each other?
Oh yeah. We didn't realize it at the time, but I mean, we were always, a team. If we set a net, I mean, one person had the motor, another person set the net, etc. And keep the boat lined up and didn't want it drifting across the net and stuff, so you kind of worked together, cutting wood, one guy in the chainsaw, another one lemon, and someone else hauling out and filling up the Comedic or something.
What were your favorite things to do?
Hunting and fishing and trapping and sports, played a lot into everything. Like back in those days, we played a lot of floor hockey and volleyball and through the school. And even intramurals, we go home and eat and rush back and have another half hour in the school playing volleyball and stuff, floor hockey. Then you got into like ice hockey and, the old-fashioned ball hockey. You're on a rink in the summer, and with plywood down and you had full gear on, but sneakers, that type of ball hockey. There was a lot of sports back then. Canoe regatta, I paddled in that for like 14 years. Northwest River used to have a wicked participation with the canoe regatta. There was juniors, there was intermediates, there was women's, there was men's, and then seniors division, canoe regatta teams, right? Well, it was a fervor of activity in Northwest River in the old days compared to now.
What games did you play?
We'd use a house and play like tally over, and you throw the ball over, and the other guys on the other side would either catch it or not. And if they caught it, they'd run around the house and they'd have to hit you with the ball. And if they got you, you're out. So you would wait off, and the last 2 people would run around the house and try to hit each other with the ball, right? It was called tally over, and then, there was like capture the flag. We used to play when we were kids on the beach. And, like I say, like volleyball and hockey. And I know back in the day, we used to play a lot of Monopoly and like Pictionary and stuff when we were like teenagers, I guess. There's a lot of stuff I can't remember, I suppose, but the games were a lot different, I'll say, in the old days than they are now, right?
What was dating like back then?
Dating? Oh, geez. It was like, of course there was no social media or anything, so everything was like direct contact, I guess, and conversations. There were some like social groups, I guess you could say. We had some youth groups that we had around town. Some were like ran by the church and others by the town. And so there were more like dances and stuff in the school or through the community. And like as you got older, it seemed, the dances progressed into more community events. So it was like a local band would play and we'd all gather and dance the night away. So relationships were made through those interactions, I think.
Who were your role models?
Oh, gee. I suppose, other family members, I guess. I can remember watching TV, and it wasn't so much exposure in the old days as it was now. You had to get up, and you had like 3 channels, right? It was 1, 2, or 3, and that was it. One was CBC that shut off at like 10:30 at night, and so it wasn't so much of like sporting guys or girls. It was like family you went around with, I guess, like your uncles and fathers and people you hang out with, other friends.
What was your favorite thing about Northwest River?
Well, Northwest River had its own identity, as any community does, I guess. And we were kind of unique in one way. We had, we had the old cable car years ago. I remember that quite clearly, both cable cars. And we had the construction of the bridge there in 91, 81, 82, and the cable car just faded away after that. So that was a kind of a unique thing about Northwest River. We had a really nice beach. We had great community participation in sporting events, and we were a force to be reckoned with back in the day, right? Which has faded away, I got to say, in these years. There were so many sports back in the old days. Northwest River was really competitive, eh? Plus, it's sort of a melting pot of culture, of course, with the Innu there just across the river, and the settlers and the Inuit here in Northwest River proper. And so that was a unique part of the community as well. And we were all Northwest River one time. There was no separate community of Sheshatshiu. Even though there was a cultural identity there, we were all Northwest River. People didn't always get along in the old days like they do now. I remember a lot of things happening, like, intercultural stuff that, is shunned on in today's world, but it's a bit cruel when you think about it. In the old days, there were always these, cultural divisions that showed their nasty side there from time to time. And so that was a part of growing up in Northwest River as well, which made it kind of unique. There's the interactions between the cultural groups here, eh? Even though today, you look at it and it really isn't there anymore. But once upon a time, it was something that was quite real. That's a part of the Northwest River identity from, I'll say again, the old days. But then again, on the other hand, you see nowadays, the intermingling is it's hardly even noticeable anymore. It's just part of the way the two communities have grown together, eh?
You spent much time on the land.
Oh yeah. We spend a lot of time on the land. I remember leaving school and we were, 12 or 14, and me and my brother would rush home and get on our skidoos and head up to Grand Lake, and where our father was already there. He had went up in the morning, and we'd go up in the evening, and by the time we got halfway up, of course, it was already dark, or dark before that, and so we'd do a lot of traveling on Grand Lake at night to get there. And the next day, we'd check traps and hunt, and we'd be looking for spruce partridge, white partridge. We hunt martins, beavers, otters, lynx, You know, you scattered fox here and there. It was great fun.
What was your favorite part?
Gee, favorite part. I guess it was, traveling the rivers and, knowing the river. Even to this day, I got a 18-foot fiberglass canoe with a 6 horsepower. I've got a John boat, and I've got another 16-foot boat. I recently just got a jet drive motor to go even further up the rivers than what we used to do when we were young. You know, you're moose hunting and all that, and you want to get to those remoter places where, nobody goes. And so we continue to travel the rivers a lot. Like up at Grand Lake, you got like Nescopy, of course, Crooked River, you got Red Wine River, you got Beaver River, you got Cape Caribou River, you got, there's so many of them, right? Susan River. So we hunt all that area. That's what we call like our ground, Yeah, so traveling the rivers, I guess, would have been, one of the things you kind of look forward to.
What was the most important part of being out on the land?
I guess, being safe, knowing what good ice is as opposed to bad ice, when to travel, when to not, how to read the weather, just staying safe. Make sure you got a survival kit when you go. If you got to jump from your skidoo because you go through the ice, and the people you go around with initially, and you have experience with, going up and fishing someone's skidoo out of the lake and with a boat and stuff and through the ice. And you kind of see for yourself what you shouldn't do. So you kind of learn from there what you should do. And so, you kind of watch the weather, you watch the forecast, you watch the winds, and, even though the ice moves, the ice cracks, and the ice, rifters up and down, you just play the game, and you go up so far, you continue to check the ice. Father used to do was, you go out, and if it's one chop, well, hey, we're not going any further, right, with the axe. But if you got to go like 4 or 5 chops, it's still good. So you're looking at, 4 inches of ice, kind of minimum. I've been on ice that has been worse. I'm up to my cabin and people come up to me and say, geez, the ice is bad. I say, oh, geez, it's pretty good. He said, geez, you went through on your track back there, but we never went through. The skidoo went in. I said, oh, God, must have been a bad spot, right? So there's times when, the tide comes up on a shoal or something that eats away the ice a little more in places. So you got to watch for that kind of stuff as well. I went for a swim in Grand Lake one time in 1996 in January. The ice had come together off a big point, and it rifted down the thick ice, and it froze over overnight. So we came on up on skidoo, and it had frozen over. There was light snow, but it was only about like an inch, I guess. And so, anyway, going along, you wouldn't have known there was anything going on there. And the skidoo went down and jumped off and was swimming there, and you got your parker on, your skidoo pants, your boots, and the mitts, and you're there just kind of breaking water, breaking ice, and my buddy with me ended up throwing me an axe first. I could kind of hold myself there with the axe until he got a rope out, and got the rope out and pulled me ashore, and we ended up going back down the lake to a cabin and got warmed up and dried up. Went back up to get the skidoo the next day, and it was just a corner, the Comodic sticking up out of the ice where it went down the rifter and was stuck there when the ice went down like this. So the skidoo was down there, probably 25 feet, I suppose, and it was just a Comodic sticking up about that far. So we just hooked onto it and towed everything right back up, and it's just kind of what you done. And I actually do travel quite a lot myself. I went up Red Wine River one time, about 85 kilometers myself, and stayed the night myself, and right on the river, of course. Just went up for something to do and check it out. And the old timers used to go up, like my father and his father used to go up the Red Wine Mountains in the old days and hunt caribou up there. It was quite common, as well as Mealy Mountains, but you don't see that anymore these days. But it was quite common in the old days to do that trip. I mean, back in those days, they had in the early days, they had dog teams in Mealy Mountains, and they had old 12s and 6s and 8 horsepower skidoos going around the mountains and that. Not like today.
What should be in a survival kit?
So I actually have 2 survival kits, I guess you could say. One is one that I take with me all the time, and it goes with me everywhere, whether it's summer or winter or fall or spring. So first of all, it's a waterproof bag. So for me, it's like 3 or 4 different types of fire starter. You know, they could be any number of things, like candles. I take a tarp, a nice flashlight. I take a first aid kit, a roll of tape. I take a small tarp, maybe like 8 by 8, something like that. There, in my other bag, I have, like a knife, of course, and a saw, and even a small axe, like a hatchet, in the survival kit itself. Yeah, in today's world, I carry like an InReach on myself, which is a personal sort of a communication device, but it also has like an SOS on it as well, and like a geographic locator. And in my other bag, for winter, I have again, it's a full, large, waterproof bag with a full change of clothes, a one-piece, full insulated, like skidoo suit, boot liners, fur hat, other mitts, and like inner clothes like long johns and that type of thing, sweater. And you never know when you need it yourself, but you may come across somebody like in trouble or distress that's going to need some help as well, right? So it's not only for you, but it's for someone you may come up on,
Were those days tough?
Well, I suppose you could say they were looking back at them, but you really didn't know the difference then. Like we cut so much firewood and stuff, and we split it all, of course, by hand, of course, and carried it all in the house, of course, by hand, and yeah, the days in tent and being cold, and yeah, I guess there's a lot to compare it to now. Looking back, I guess you could say it was a whole lot tougher than it is today. Things seem so much simpler these days for some reason, but a lot of that activity isn't really done for young people to appreciate so much anymore. But not that it's totally disappeared, but it's something that it's kind of taken for granted. It has to be taught to children these days as opposed to being a way of life.
Did you go through hard times?
Well, looking back at it, yes, of course, not as hard as some. I think the people on the coast of Labrador had it a lot tougher than we did here in Northwest River, with access to supplies and isolation issues. We were never what you considered isolated as much as the coastal communities, but yeah, I guess you could say we had some hard times, but I kind of shy back from that because I think we had a pretty good life considering how bad it could have been. Like growing up, we always worked in these sort of community projects and stuff, and as you're like 18 or 19, you finish school and you kind of go on EI for a while and you had this independence, and it's like, oh yeah, look at me, I'm making all kinds of money now. And back in those days, making like $5.50 an hour was fairly good, right? You're looking at hourly rates today, like $40 or something, right? Anyway, I just wanted to summarize by saying, I've been, working all my life, and I got into blasting in '96, and blasting in Boise Bay for like 18 years, underground now blasting, and it's a bit of a challenge, but it's getting close to retirement now, so I can kiss all that goodbye and go back to hunting and fishing full time again.
How have things changed?
How have things changed in Northwest River? When I was your guys' age, Northwest River was quite isolated. There was no road to Goose Bay. Well, I suppose there was, but it was this old gravel winding road that was hardly used much. So we were more of a group in Northwest River, and there was so much community participation in the old days with sports and stuff. The rink was a popular place, and the beach, of course, in the summer. We would do a lot of hunting and fishing and trapping. And a lot of that has changed. The population, of course, has changed. Once upon a time, where I live now was an actual airstrip for medical planes and traveling up and down the coast for the Grenfell mission. So that's all changed. There's no airstrip anymore. It's just one of the main streets in town. Of course, there was no bridge when I was growing up. There was a cable car. The bridge came in 1982, before most of you guys were born, I'd say. He's never traveled a cable car, but I did. I could go on and on and on about the changes. There was a hospital here in town, of course. There was a Yale school down the road there, where the community center is now. And all that's changed. Yeah, so a lot of changes.
Did you go through challenges?
Yeah, I suppose we went through challenges, looking back at it. Even like graduating high school and moving on to university and stuff was quite a challenge in the old days, and that wasn't something you did quite easily. Of course, you had to leave Labrador and go to the island, and most people, of course, went to Memorial University and stuff, so you were kind of taken away from your home and transplanted. But even with that said, it was still ongoing when I was a young feller. All the communities on the coast would come to Northwest River for their schooling. And so, yeah, I've went through challenges, but the people on the North Coast have went through much more challenging events than I did. Yeah.
What are your favorite things to do to pass the time now?
So favorite things to do to pass the time now is basically, hunt and fish and travel on skidoo and boat, set nets, fish salmon, fly rod, and, do a lot of that. Cut wood. This is one of mostly my favorite things to do.
What do you think the future will be like?
Future will be like, boy. Well, I suppose the future, like any question about the future, is so many unknowns. So it's kind of hard to predict. But hopefully Northwest River as a municipality expands and opens up some property so we can keep our young people in Northwest River and they have places to build homes and that type of thing. Even Goose Bay was a small little town on the river one time, and now it's spread out so wide and big. Northwest River is expanding, of course, but I think we could do a lot better. That's just one aspect of the future. I don't think hunting and fishing is going to be so popular as it was when I was growing up. It's so hard to predict the future, isn't it?
What are your hopes for what you'll do in the future?
What I do in the future? Oh, my future plan right now is to give up Boise's Bay and just retire and not have such a hectic lifestyle anymore. Like I said to the other group, I've been blasting for 27 years and a lot of hard work there. So I'm looking at just fading away from that and just not having to worry about it anymore.
What do you think about the future of Northwest River?
Well, I think Northwest River has become more reliant on Goose Bay with all its services and things they have there, of course. And so hopefully Northwest River can maintain its population and keep our school, maintain our community spirit and try to recapture some of the old competition we had in the old days.
What would help Northwest River in the future?
Well, like I said earlier, I think the community has to develop, housing lots so the town can expand and keep our residents in Northwest River and not, be forced to move away because the town can't accommodate, housing. And the school, of course, and, keep our, picturesque identity. I think the town needs a more vibrant community center and a recreation center. It seems that every community on the coast and every other community you can think of in Labrador has that, except Northwest River. We don't have an arena, we don't have a sport facility, we don't have those type of community-based organizations here. I don't know why. I think it's just a reliance on Goose Bay. So you want to swim in a swimming pool? Well, you go to Goose Bay. You want to skate on a real skate? You go to Goose Bay. You know what I mean? So Northwest River is kind of forgotten about like that. But really, it's to the detriment of the town that we don't have those kind of facilities here, in the community itself, right?
What is your life advice?
Real searching questions, eh? Oh boy, advice for life. Well, you got to look after yourself, play safe, be safe. I've been worked to death over the years and it ends up, I had a knee operation. I got a sore back and my hip is wearing out. And geez, by the time I retire, I'm going to be in hard shape, Might have to get a new hip. So, look after yourselves and, think about retirement early. Once you get into the workforce, take full advantage of the retirement programs. I'm talking to you guys right now when you're like 10, 11 years old, that don't mean anything. And it probably won't until you're like too old to realize how important it was. But take my advice, take advantage of all the retirement programs you can as young as you can so you can retire as early as you can.
What is your advice for getting through tough times?
So, yeah, I guess, preparation. If you, have experienced hard times in your life, and God knows COVID have taught us all a lesson about survival, I guess, and, the panic that was there to stock up on necessities before, all the stores started closing and people couldn't go outside and gather and the isolation. So I guess the best advice is to just be prepared for the worst.
What is the key to happiness?
I guess the key to happiness is compromise. Everybody has their, share of disagreements, and you have to expect it. So, with that said, you can learn from past issues you may have had and know how to overcome, diversity and, compromise and just get through it and, try to see things coming before they happen and learn to deal with them before they create a problem.
What is the secret to living on the land?
I suppose the secret of living on the land is knowing the land, knowing how to survive on the land, knowing how to, be a part of nature and use it to for your own survival. Learn from the land. It's got a lot to teach you. The more you can learn, the easier it'll be.
What's your advice for others wanting to be on the land?
So my advice for people who want to be on the land is to learn to look after yourself. Learn how to deal with difficult situations and with a lack of resources, and how to sustain yourself and stay cool. God knows there's enough challenging situations out there. I've been in them myself, whether it's in boat, on skidoo, or what have you. There's a lot out there that's going to trip you up. So, you need a good teacher to begin with. You got to have somebody who's experienced it to be able to show young people, what to expect and how to deal with it moving forward. So they learn, the key to learning is understanding. If you don't understand something, you'll never learn.
Do you have any stories about being on the land, whether it's like animal sightings or like any like special moments that you remember from when you were a child about being out on the land?
Yeah, so when Voisey Bay first started, I was an environmental technician up there, and I've been one for years in my earlier days. And during the environmental assessment there, we were, going around and identifying, animal footprints and, those type of surveys, right? Anyway, I was walking through the woods, and there was this whole mucky trail, and there was a clear footprint of a wolverine, right? So I reported it as a wolverine, and it was just debunked as saying, like, there's no wolverines in Labrador. I said, no, that's the story, but this is clearly distinct. Like, there's no question that it's a wolverine track, right? There used to be wolverines here back in the 40s and 50s and stuff, and those old stories from trappers, how they tore apart their tilts and tore apart their traps and ate their fur and everything. So, I don't know what their cycle is, but anyway, it was debunked that it was a wolverine. There must have been a wolf. So anyway, I was like, okay, call it what you like. But so anyway, as I continued to work in Voisey's Bay, maybe 4 years later in the winter, we seen one. It went through the site, up over the hill, and crossed the haul road, and people visually seen it. And we went up and looked at the track again through the snow, and again, it's that distinct track of a wolverine. And there's been 2 sightings of wolverines in Voisey's Bay alone since that time. So I'm kind of telling myself, no, yeah, guys, when I tell you it's a wolverine track, it's a wolverine, okay? So it kind of maybe symbolizes a bit of a comeback for the species, got to start somewhere, yeah.
What was the biggest animal you've ever seen?
Oh, geez, that's like, probably a moose, like a...
You've seen a polar bear.
Yeah, polar bear, true. Good point. I actually shot a polar bear. So long story short, I was a fishery officer for 5 years, wildlife officer for 2.5, and during when I was a wildlife officer, we were asked to go down to a remote community in southern Labrador. A polar bear was up on a guy's doorstep and into his garbage there in the back step, and he shot it with like a .22 250 into the front leg and to drive it away. was so close to the house, I guess he freaked out. Anyway, the polar bear went out onto the harbor and just sat there, right? And so we got a call to go down and deal with it. So, you know, those stories don't end well. But we went down in a helicopter, and we had a 270, a gun, and of course we had to put the animal down. And so I took the door off the helicopter and strapped in. I said, the senior guy, you want to do this? He said, no, I'm not doing it. I said, okay, well, I'll do it. So we hovered over the animal, and of course you weren't allowed to shoot it in the head because they had to take it for scientific purposes. So one shot went down, first shot went down through the body, and it started rolling like a ball out the bay, as it was on its back. I shot another one down through the breastbone, and like it just died instantaneously, like boom. But then it broke through the ice, and so it was just floating there, dead. And so then we had to retrieve it, of course. And so we went ashore in the chopper, came back out and dropped us off, and we, got out, and we had to strap it on, and I can remember reaching out and grabbing it by the nose and waiting for its eyes to open, that kind of way, you know what I mean? And got the strap around its head, and we went back on the good ice and got it up on the ice and in a net, and the chopper took it ashore. So yeah, I guess I could say I shot a polar bear in my day, and that would have been the biggest animal. Other than that, it was like a huge moose.
What kind of gun did you use to shoot the polar bear?
So the gun we used at the time was a 270 Winchester. So that's the kind of a gun you would use for shooting moose. Yeah.
What are the bullets did you kill it with?
So bullets, yeah. So even a 270 or a 243, like there's like 100 grain shells or 80 grain shells, which means the amount of powder in the bullet is like, one is good for long range, one is good for short range. The same bullet could be used for a bigger animal, the same bullet could be used for a smaller one. So with a polar bear, you want to use a 100 grain bullet, as opposed to if you were shooting a caribou with a 270, you would use a 80 grain bullet, so you wouldn't do so much damage and stuff. So yeah, bullet choice is an important thing. That's a good question.
How many moose did you kill?
Oh gee. In the old days, we could have shot many moose, but no one even wanted it. No one liked it. No one even wanted to bother with a moose. They were a nuisance animal because we always hunted caribou, right? So we never started hunting moose in my life until like 20 years ago, when the caribou disappeared. And geez, we got to find that the Labrador moose are damn good. Yeah. It was always an impression that it was no good, see, because they were hunted in the winter time, which is generally not so great. But if you get them in boat in the fall, it's really good meat. Well, the whole browse issue, like in the summer, there's like reeds and more, aquatic foliage, as opposed to being confined to browse and willows in the winter. You can't get at the stuff in the water, right? In the softer type feed.
Thank you guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. You're welcome.
You've been listening to Labrador Legacy.
Thank you to ArtsNL, ArtsSmarts, for funding this program.
We are Brogan,
Owen.
Curtis,
Nixon,
Misha,
Caden,
Raylan.
Xavier.
Cody,
Darius.
Noah,
Maddox.
at Lake Melville School.
Thank you for listening.
Please check out our other episodes of Labrador Legacy.